Gold versus Bitcoin. Both are considered safe haven assets, but which is likely to offer you a better return in the long run? Gold has been used as money by emperors, kings, and governments all around the world for more than 5,000 years. It has stood the test of time. Bitcoin's growth has been unprecedented. In only 14 years, it is outpacing the growth of the internet. And with El Salvador adopting Bitcoin as legal tender recently, it's not showing any signs of slowing down. In this video, we discuss 5 key differences between these two asset classes, comparing some of their risks, limitations, and of course some of their most powerful benefits. Let's dive right in.
This is a long-term price chart of gold. As you can see, for the past 10 or 11 years, the gold price has basically been flat. In other words, if you bought $1,000 worth of gold in 2012, your investment return is basically zero. You'd still have around $1,000 or so worth of gold today. And when we factor in the negative effect of inflation over this time period, it actually means that in real terms, you would have lost a significant amount of money. In real buying power, $1,000 in 2012 is worth less than $500 today. And this means that gold has obviously not been a reliable store of value over the past 10-year period. By contrast, this is the Bitcoin price chart for the same period. If you bought $1,000 worth of Bitcoin in 2012, you'd have over $2 million today. Now, in fairness, this sort of growth is not sustainable forever, but typically the Bitcoin price is approximately doubling each year over the long run. Now, in saying that, its price is volatile. You'll need to endure sustained periods of negative growth and then be able to remain calm and rational during periods of extreme price appreciation.
Now, in order to understand Bitcoin's potential future value, it's useful to take a look at the total size of other markets as a starting point. The US stock market alone is valued at around $40 trillion. The gold market is worth over $12 trillion, whereas the Bitcoin market is worth just over $400 billion, a tiny fraction of gold's market cap, around 3.5% to be more precise. Bitcoin can be compared with gold because they both share similar attributes and functions. However, Bitcoin is much more than just a digital version of gold, and therefore its ultimate market cap is likely to be much higher than gold's. In fact, it's more accurate to look to the market cap of bonds and global currencies to try to understand Bitcoin's eventual market cap. And bonds and currencies together are currently worth in the order of hundreds of trillions of dollars. Even if Bitcoin ultimately only absorbs a tiny fraction of these markets, its value will be substantially greater than it is today. The potential upside for Bitcoin, therefore, is far greater than it is for stocks or any other investment vehicle in existence.
Most people aren't aware that governments have a long history of forcibly confiscating their citizens' gold. In 1933, the US government confiscated citizens' gold coins by issuing Executive Order 6102. Citizens were forced to hand over their gold coins or gold bullion they possessed to the Federal Reserve in exchange for paper currency under threat of arrest and prosecution. But the US was not the only country to confiscate gold from their citizens. Australia and Great Britain pulled similar stunts in the 1950s and 1960s. And in fact, there are numerous other examples in recent history, both in first world and third world countries alike. Here's the thing, gold is relatively easy to confiscate because it is a physical object. As mentioned earlier, many gold owners like to store their gold in a bank vault or safety deposit box, and they do so because they believe this to be the most secure option. Consider for a moment, however, that if a government ever forced their citizens to hand over their gold again, these vaults would be the very first place they would look. Centralized storage solutions like bank vaults are very easy to seize. If this sounds a little far-fetched to you, consider that governments and their central banks all around the world are currently under immense economic pressure to avoid a major recession. And in such trying times, as pressure mounts, aggressive actions are often proposed by bureaucrats.
So, how does Bitcoin address these concerns? Bitcoin is by far the most difficult form of money for any government or malicious third party to seize. If properly secured, no one can take it away from you. The Bitcoin network is secured by advanced cryptography and millions of dedicated computers worldwide. It is the single most secure network in the entire world. The fact that Bitcoin is digital and not a physical object like gold is a feature, not a flaw. As long as you keep your wallet backup safe, your money is near untouchable. Under extreme circumstances such as these, we've heard of people effectively storing their Bitcoin in their heads through memorizing their wallet backups. And this allowed them to flee their country with their wealth intact. Bitcoin is the only asset on earth you can do this with, and this not only makes it unconfiscatable, but a truly remarkable tool for billions of people living under severe oppression. So if you want to be fully self-sovereign and truly own your wealth in the purest sense, Bitcoin is the asset for you.
One of the most important points of this video is understanding the difference between a paper promise and true ownership of the underlying asset. Many investors overlook this critical distinction, often with grave consequences. This is especially important since it applies to both gold and Bitcoin. In the case of gold, many investors opt to buy gold stocks or gold ETFs on the stock market due to the relative simplicity involved in purchasing it. Other investors buy gold bullion, such as gold bars or gold coins, under false pretenses, where the gold dealer assures the client that their gold is in safe custody and claimable at any time. We would refer to both of these scenarios as a paper promise. In both cases, neither investor can be sure that they own the actual gold, since they are entrusting a third party with their asset. How can you be sure that the gold actually exists? Can you verify that the same gold hasn't been sold to 10 different people? If you perhaps want to take physical delivery of the actual gold at some point in the future, will you be given this option? Regardless of how much you trust a company's good intentions and their solid track record, the future is uncertain. Any number of things can happen. Whenever a third party is involved, you can be sure that when it really comes down to it, you owe nothing more than a promise. And unfortunately, during difficult economic times, even well-intentioned companies fall short of their promises. Serious gold investors understand this point all too well. As students of history, they know that trusting third parties with their wealth is seldom a good idea over the long term. And this is why serious gold investors will insist on always taking physical custody. In other words, true ownership of their gold. Whether it is coins, bars, or gold jewelry, serious gold investors only buy physical gold which they can hold in their hands and have full and complete control over.
Now, this exact same principle applies to Bitcoin too. Many new investors do not understand the difference between a paper promise and truly owning the underlying Bitcoin for themselves. And this introduces a very real and imminent risk for unsuspecting new Bitcoin investors. Many new investors will buy Bitcoin on an exchange like Coinbase or Binance, or through an app like Robinhood, without realizing that this is only the first step of a two-step process. The second and most important step of the process is to take ownership of your Bitcoin by sending it off the platform you bought it on and into your personal custody. If you rely on a third party to store your Bitcoin after you buy it, you in essence own nothing more than a paper promise. And these promises are constantly broken. History is full of examples of crypto companies being hacked or going bankrupt and losing all of their clients' funds. Don't be one of those statistics. There is absolutely no reason to entrust a third party with your Bitcoin under any circumstance, especially when taking self-custody is as easy as it is today.
So now that we understand the importance of self-custody through owning the underlying asset, let's discuss some of the practical considerations of ownership. Buying gold in its physical form presents a few difficulties. First off, it's not possible to buy very small amounts of gold bullion, so you may need to save for a few months to buy the smallest denomination available. Next, you'll need to carefully consider how you'll store and secure your bullion. Plenty of storage options exist, but they can be expensive and they may not be economical for storing very small amounts of gold. A small vault or safety deposit box could be an option, but you'll need to trust that the storage company will always act in your best interests. And you'll need to feel comfortable with the policies and terms the storage company sets. For these reasons, some gold investors actually prefer to use more primitive storage solutions, like burying their gold in undisclosed locations, or by installing a strong safe hidden in a location they control. This removes third parties from their investment completely. Another point to note is that the transaction fees to buy and sell gold are not insignificant, and there are instances where you may have to wait for your local gold dealer to get more stock before you can buy. They don't always have supply on hand depending on what stock you're looking for. This holds particularly true in times of economic crisis, when investors scramble to add to their gold positions and buy up all the available supply. Many investors faced this exact problem in March 2020 when uncertainty and fear hit the markets.
Turning to Bitcoin now, an advantage over gold is that you can buy absolutely any amount you like. If you want $1 worth or $1 million worth, no problem. You can buy it 24/7 from the comfort of your home using an internet connection and cell phone app. There is never a problem with shortages of stock. Bitcoin is incredibly liquid and always available, even at 2 a.m. on Christmas morning. Transaction fees do range and some services are more expensive than others, but if you know how, it's possible to buy with near zero fees. We suggest buying Bitcoin from an ethical Bitcoin exchange. We'll put up a few we like on the screen now. An ethical Bitcoin exchange will encourage you to take personal custody of your Bitcoin. And as a reminder, buying Bitcoin the right way is a two-step process. Step 1 is the purchase on an ethical Bitcoin exchange. Step 2 is taking ownership of your Bitcoin, transferring it away from the exchange and into your personal custody in a wallet that only you control. For small amounts, we suggest downloading an app like Moon or Blue Wallet on your phone. Follow the on-screen instructions carefully to create a new wallet. Be sure to back up your wallet in writing with pen and paper, as recommended by the app. Keep your backup in a safe location and under your direct control at all times, and consider making a second backup for safekeeping in a different secure location. As long as you have your backup stored safely, you can rest assured that your Bitcoin is under your control. Even if you lose your phone, as long as you have your backup, it's easy to restore your wallet onto a new phone.
Gold is a physical asset. It takes up space, is heavy, and is cumbersome to move, especially in large quantities. Moving a few $1 million worth of gold securely is not easy, and it's not cheap. At minimum, you need armored vehicles, trained security personnel, and costly insurance, and these things make gold quite impractical to move around, especially over long distances. But there's another problem. Local authorities do not respond well to investors carrying gold across their borders. In fact, more often than not, you'll be stopped and your gold will be seized if you attempt to carry it with you through airport security, especially in larger quantities. All these factors make moving gold extremely risky and difficult, especially if you need to move it quickly or between different nation states, if you're planning on immigrating, for example.
What about Bitcoin? Because Bitcoin operates on the internet, you can transact with anyone in the world who has an internet connection. It does not recognize borders. It does not care about countries and their banking laws. There is no bureaucratic red tape. It just works. You can send any amount of money to anyone in the world at any time of day with zero restrictions or legal requirements. You can send any amount of Bitcoin from here to halfway across the world at almost no cost, and no one can stand in your way. You can cross a border of a hostile nation with as much Bitcoin as you like, and no one can take it from you. You can send Bitcoin to your family in a third world country where no traditional banking system exists, and you can be sure that they will safely receive the money.
So pag nasa Amerika ako, medyo mahal yung mga fees to send money back dito sa Pinas. So ano gagawin ko? Ayaw ko magsayang ng pera. Introducing Strike. Strike is a payment app that allows you to send money from the US to the Philippines and other countries. What makes it special is it's the simplest payment app I've come across, and most importantly, it's fast, secure, and cheaper with no additional transaction fees. And here's my favorite part. There's no minimum spending. You can send over as little as $1. And you know why that's important? Because if I send Shavina 20,000 pesos, gagamitin niya yan in one day. But if I send her 100 pesos, she'll still use that in one day.
Bitcoin truly allows you to be your own bank. As long as you have your Bitcoin safely stored in self-custody, you are truly in control. And there is no other asset on earth that can give you this degree of freedom and certainty.
We've created a really cool video outlining 8 powerful concepts that we wish we'd known when starting our Bitcoin journey. Check it out here. Thanks a lot and see you in the next video.